Shalom. My name is Rabbi Josh Caruso of Congregation Mishkan Or. I'm honored to be here today with you and to shepherd the family through this process of grieving and mourning of their dear loved one, P Schumann. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream to be and to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. Dear God, this day, be with us, wrap us in your presence like a blanket, comfort our saddened souls. May the grieving family find solace in the love they share in the devotion of friends and community, and in the knowing of your sheltering presence. God, console us all in the faith that Mark lives on among us in every family celebration, in each of our smiling memories, in his devotion to friends and family. Dear God, Shomea Tfilot, hear our prayers. Find favor in our dear one, beloved father, brother, husband, grandfather, great-grandfather, and a treasured presence to so many more, so cherished and admired. Shower your presence upon him. May he be welcomed into your presence. We say together, Amen. I invite you to join me now in the recitation of Psalm 23. With God as my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight paths for the sake of God's name. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. We now call upon family and friends to share some words about Mark. First, we'll begin with Mark's son David, then with friend Peter, and finally his grandson Evan.
First of all, nephew Peter.
Oh, excuse me.
Dad. Can you hear me? Okay. Usually I talk pretty loud. The first thing I really have to say is Dad really didn't like this kind of a venue. He didn't like funerals. He didn't like services. It kind of went against who he was. He was all about life, and he was superstitious, and if he didn't have to be here, he wouldn't be here. So with that, rather than say I'm mourning my father, this is a celebration of Mark. And I will try to get through this, but bear with me, please. Dad, born on January 3rd, 1932, past October 20th, 2025. He was larger than life. He was warm, steady, and thoughtful. He lived a long, full, and charmed life. And he lived it every single day, from the day he was born until his last day with us. He wasn't a man who sat still for long. He was a doer. He was a leader. He was strong. He was capable and endlessly curious. But beyond that, he was passionate about his family, his work, his interests, and everything that caught his attention. He was the kind of man who, once something mattered to him, gave it full focus. He had presence, not because he was loud or demanding of attention, but because his energy filled a room in a way that made people feel inspired and comfortable. You could count on him. His steadiness gave everyone around him a sense that things were going to be okay because Dad was there. One of the lasting lessons that I was taught from Dad was to have a voice, to be an advocate for yourself. He believed that if something mattered, you stand up for it, you speak clearly, and you see it through. He believed in finishing what you start and in doing everything, no matter how big or small, to do it the best of your ability. When I was a kid, he used to say, I don't care if you're a ditch digger, be the best ditch digger you can. Be the best ditch digger there is. That was his philosophy. His dignity and pride come from how you do something, not what you do. Dad was a man of details. It showed up in everything he touched, from the model airplanes and boats that he built as a boy, to his paintings, to his fascination with mechanics, cars, planes, and boats. He had an eye for precision, and he took genuine joy in doing everything right. He surrounded himself with finer things in life, but not out of vanity. It was because he appreciated quality, the quality in craftsmanship, in the effort, and in people. And to him, quality meant great care. He believed that when life presents you with an opportunity, you take it because no one's going to hand you life on a silver platter. What you do with those opportunities defines you. When I think about Dad, there's lots and lots of memories, but a few stand out. One of my earliest ones was when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, during what I believe was Hurricane Cleo in Miami Beach. Dad grabbed us and we all stayed at the Eden Rock Hotel while the storm passed. I can remember the sound of the wind and the coconut slamming against the big glass balcony door. Quite frankly, I was scared. But I also remember the feeling of being completely safe because Dad was there. Somehow his calm made the storm less frightening. That's who he was. Steady, reassuring, and strong. Another memory was years later when we moved from Florida back to Cleveland. I was about 11 at that time. We lived in Georgetown Apartments where he had rented 2 units, one above the other, and in classic Dad fashion, he turned them into one big space by installing a spiral staircase. It was practical, it was clever, and it was uniquely him. Another memory came from when we went to Papa Buddy and Nana Eleanor's house. We went up into Papa's attic, and Dad came down carrying two things in his arms: a ham radio and a large wooden model boat that he had built when he was younger, maybe in his 20s, maybe even in his teens, I don't know. It was a highly detailed model of a Chris Craft cabin cruiser, an exact replica of one that my mother's parents, my grandparents had, which was the Tony Key. Even as a kid, I was amazed by the craftsmanship, the precision, and the care that went into building that model. He gave it to me, knowing how much I loved model building too, and told me I could finish it. But honestly, I don't think I could ever do it justice. But that was him, patient, thoughtful, and exacting. Then he told me stories about the ham radio, how his father used it near the end of World War II in Shaker Heights for his block watch that he was part of. And then later, how Dad used it as part of his work with the Civil Air Patrol in northeastern Ohio. To this day, I still have his flight suit from those years. And every time I see it, I think about the curiosity and his sense of purpose and his love of doing things right, and how that was just simply part of who he was. When I think about what mattered most to Dad, I think it's family. And the act of being part of it. He wasn't someone who just talked about love or loyalty. He showed it. He was present. He made an effort to stay connected, to understand people, to create relationships that were personal and real. He had a way of connecting with everybody differently. He didn't just show love in a broad, general fashion. He made you feel special. And you had your own special connection with him. And you did. And then there was his humor. He did have a good sense of humor, the kind that came from perspective and from wit. He knew how to laugh, and he knew how to enjoy life. And importantly, he knew how to laugh at himself. He could find lightness in just about any situation, and that made being around him easy and joyful. He really lived life to the fullest, curious, engaged, and open to new experiences. He cared about people and about doing things the right way. He believed in the value of work, the joy of creation, the strength of family, and the importance of living with integrity. If there's one thing that I will carry with myself forever, is that the sense of strength and steadiness that he embodied, paired with the warmth and humor that made him who he was. Dad, you really were larger than life. Not because of what you did, but because of how you made people feel. Although he's no longer here in the way we wish he was, he's still with us. And in the lessons he taught, in the laughter he shared, and in the love that he gave so freely. And for all that, and much more, I'll always be grateful. Dad, goodbye. See you later. Goodbye.
I can't think of a time when my Uncle Mark, my mother's brother, wasn't there. He was there in some of my earliest memories of being at my grandparents' house on Falmouth Road. Even as a child, I loved being around him as he lit up the room with his electric personality and his love of fun. He was there making medical rounds at Mount Sinai Hospital with my father in the 1960s when Dad introduced him as Dr. Schumann. This seems preposterous, but if you knew my uncle, you knew that he was a master of everything and could have answered any clinical questions that came up, along with the best medical minds in the city. Uncle Mark was there to set the record straight when my mother's exaggerations threatened to overtake reality as we knew it. He was there when Corky and Lenny's closed, wondering where he would get his beloved water bagels. I naively asked him why a regular egg bagel wouldn't suffice. This led to a long phone call, a lesson on bagel making, and me sending him and Christina bagels and lox from my favorite place in New York. Above all, Uncle Mark was there to answer questions and share memories. As the last of his generation, he could at great length fill in any branch of the family tree and tell endless stories about every relative, living or not. You didn't even want to get him started on Guy Lombardo. A phone call from Uncle Mark meant that you'd better fasten your seatbelt and plan on being available for at least the next half hour. There were no short conversations. But for all that, Uncle Mark was also a great listener who took a keen interest in me and the rest of his family. As Missy likes to say, he provided tremendous comfort to all of us when our mother passed away, stepping in to offer guidance, share memories, and impart all kinds of wisdom. An unapologetic champion of all good things, he, Christina, Mom, and Dad traveled the world together. For their first honeymoon and after a big double wedding, he and my mom, along with their new spouses, Ann, Buddy, and Eleanor for good measure, went on a 2-month world cruise. Can you imagine taking your parents on your honeymoon? We all know how that turned out, but fortunately for him, it led Uncle Mark to Christina, his true soulmate. He once looked at me like I was crazy for even thinking I did not deserve a blue chip painting that Joe had given me for my birthday. He unapologetically believed that we deserve all the good things that come our way. Uncle Mark lived a grand life filled with good things. He was a lively personality, a Renaissance man, a collector of both rare guns and fine Wedgwood china, a connoisseur, a raconteur, and the best table mate for lunch or dinner. Now, for the first time in my 63 years, Uncle Mark is no longer there. We will have to make do without his phone calls, digressions, and stories. Lucky for us, we still carry his voice and spirit in our hearts. Thanks to him, I can tell you all about the good life, water bagels, and so much more.
Good morning, everyone. We're gathered here today to honor and celebrate the life of my grandfather, Mark Schumann, a man whose legacy reaches far beyond his 93 remarkable years. My grandfather, at his core, was an innovator. He didn't just follow paths, he built them. As a third-generation leader of Schumann, he carried forward a family tradition that has stood as the cornerstone of American manufacturing. But he didn't stop there. He repurchased the company, returned it private to family, ensuring that our name, our values, and our craftsmanship would remain rooted right here in Northeast Ohio. Whether it was in the air, on the road, or out at sea, my grandfather was drawn to motion, to mechanics, to creation, to the very act of making things work. His mind never stopped turning. He was endlessly curious, always tinkering, always improving, always looking for a better way to do something. He saw beauty in precision and joy in problem solving. For him, innovation wasn't a job, it was a way of life. And I know so much of who I am, my own entrepreneurial spirit, my drive, my work ethic, come directly from him. I've always felt that same fire that kept him dreaming, building, creating, still burns within me. When I take risks, when I chase opportunity, when I push to build something lasting, I know I'm continuing a tradition that he began. His example showed me that success isn't just measured by what you make, but by the ingenuity, the integrity, the persistence, and the purpose that we bring to our work. Perhaps the most profound part of his legacy isn't just what he built, it's what he inspired. His drive, his courage, his belief in American industry have become the very fabric of our family. That Schumann DNA of hard work, ingenuity, and perseverance continues to run through each of us. It's a legacy of not just business, but purpose. Providing opportunity, creating jobs, and helping our community grow stronger. The day my grandfather passed away was also the day that my wife and I found out that we were expecting our second child. In that moment, it felt as though, while a great light went out, another began to flicker on. It reminded me that this legacy that he's created isn't ending. It's evolving, it's alive, it's carried forward by all of us, through our work, our values, and through the next generation of the Schumann family. I'm so proud to carry the Schumann name, a name that stands for American manufacturing, for innovation, for family, and for the quiet strength of building something that lasts. Thank you, Papa, for showing us what it means to dream big, to work hard, to always look forward. Your legacy lives in our hearts, our hands, and in our future.
Thank you all. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu Eal Kol Yisrael. In the great compendium of rabbinic wisdom, Pirkei Avot, the great sage Hillel wrote perhaps the most oft-quoted aphorism of that volume. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? I share Hillel's words not because Mark Schumann was a tremendously religious or observant person, but because he was proud to be a Jew. And the wisdom of the rabbis is applicable in this regard. He carries on that unbroken chain of tradition as a proud Jew and passed that on to his children, receiving it from his parents. So we start with that first phrase of the aphorism, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? This first part of Hillel's maxim is a bold statement of Judaism's pragmatism. Self-realization is a cornerstone of living a life of value and ultimately contributes to the greater good. Judaism has always taught that one should put their oxygen mask on first. Mark spent his life striving to grow his own personal knowledge, his learnings of the world. His intellectual pursuits knew no bounds. He had an insatiable desire to learn and widen his horizons, as his obituary states. A lifelong tinkerer, pilot, navigator, and collector, Mark had a passion for all things mechanical, cars, planes, boats. He was also dedicated to philanthropy and particularly supporting growth and innovation at university hospitals in Cleveland. Indeed, Mark collected and sold guns, loved anything that raced or flew, including cars and airplanes and hydroplanes. He always had a project, and every time he began a new endeavor, he jumped in with both feet. His passion was unmatched. He absorbed and devoured every aspect of life, and he also sought to share what he knew through aphorisms and stories himself. He taught his kids and those in his sphere that you should never say no, because that, to him, was a capitulation. Yes opened doors to new vistas and opportunities. Even as a child, Mark pushed the limits, setting fires in the woods, finding new portals of discovery wherever he could, growing up in Shaker. He never backed away from a challenge. In fact, his boxing skills came in handy when he was faced with anti-Semitism in his school days. Mark recalled having to fight every day. But one day, one fateful day, he popped a kid, and he was never bothered again. He stood up for himself and his Jewish identity. Second phrase of that aphorism, if I am only for myself, what am I? It was Mark's penchant to share the knowledge he gained that captured the essence of Hillel's words here. He was generous with his time and treasure, and he also had high expectations of family and friends. I think one could say that was probably an understatement. He had outsized expectations of family and friends. He demanded it of himself. He demanded it of others. He collected art, including Wedgwood pottery, which he thoughtfully gifted to those close to him. And as grandiose as his life was, as outsized as his personality was, Mark still desired companionship. He never liked being alone and sought to share his life with another. To put it more plainly, Mark liked women. and he spent the various stages of his life looking for the right person. Luckily, his last chance at love truly stuck. Christina came into Mark's life in the late 1980s. The beautiful Swede from Stockholm immediately captured Mark's attention. He was smitten from the start. However, Christina was in no rush and took her time to try and unpack who this guy was, who seemed so self-assured, so ready to be present in her life. Nevertheless, as Christina demurred at the beginning, they stayed connected. Christina moved to Spain with her dad and Nicolette, and still Christina would talk to her dad about this guy. And her father, understanding what was going on, her father knew that Mark had made a deep impression on his daughter. He encouraged her to call Mark, and soon those calls became routine. Mark told her, "Come back to Florida for a short time." And she found her way to him. Once they were together, Mark always put her first. He adored her. Nicolette was a wonderful part of this package deal, and Mark welcomed another chance to be a father figure to Nikki. I believe, Nikki, you were 16 maybe when he came into your life. Mark's children from the previous era, one from which you've heard today, all are so very grateful to both Christina and Nikki for coming into their dad's life. Tony and Carla made it a point to share the following note with me. Christina's daughter, Nikki, should get a special thank you for being so caring of Dad on an almost daily basis. Although all of us were involved in Dad's life, she took him to the gym several times a week, had lunch with him, and was always there to accept his many phone calls. All of us really appreciated her care of him. Thank you, Nikki. And that leads us to the final third of Hillel's maxim. And if not now, when? Mark's life was an exercise in getting as much out of life as possible. He sought to fill his moments up with knowledge and growth. He lived his days with the if not now, when attitude. He raised his children to see life through a similar lens. He never missed a chance to show his affection for them with hugs and kisses every time he would say goodbye. That was something that surely his kids wanted to impress upon me, is that you're never too old and you're never too close to someone, even your parent, to share a kiss with them, to be affectionate in that way. As Nikki clearly remembers, Mark preached the gospel. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Every day presented a new opportunity for Mark to acquire some new knowledge, to learn about history, to collect or sell a new item, a firearm, a piece of art, to launch a new project, to enjoy watching a souped-up car race around the track, to love on his children, to love on his wife, to be a mentor, to be a friend to countless others. Life is not a dress rehearsal. As his children shared, their dad was the best version of himself at each distinct phase of his life. What a beautiful and generous thing to say and to believe, that we are all only the best versions and we should strive to be the best versions of ourselves at any phase of our lives, knowing that previous chapters, maybe we couldn't reach the heights that we reached later, the understandings or the discernments. But yes, to strive to be the best version of ourselves at this time. And his children recognized that he was that best version at any time in his life. That said, Mark was not always easy. He was very stubborn. And it was what drove him, propelled him in his life. Oh, that double-edged sword of being driven, wanting to learn and push and push and push. And that always leaves a little bit of wreckage around. But Mark appreciated all that he learned and everything that he was. They clearly broke the mold with Mark. And all those who knew him were privileged to absorb the world as he knew it. It was as if you were all watching a movie, a beautiful epic of this man who ate life. Unsurprisingly, Mark Schumann, as you have referenced, David, he did not like the whole death thing. He did not like cemeteries or anything that resembled a retreat or a regression. He didn't like getting old, and he wished to disassociate himself with those who he perceived as old. And even at Eliza Jennings, he never even wanted to go to bed, for that might be, in his mind, an admission of failure, that he had not achieved enough in that day to actually merit going to bed. Wow. And that is why family never expected Mark to leave this earth as he did, slipping away into the night without ever an indication that he was close to breathing his last breaths. But perhaps, just perhaps, that is the way Mark designed it. On his own terms, never to be pitied, never to be spending days, weeks, months in a state he would never want himself to be in. So we take this time and we recognize those special individuals in his life, his family members, Christina, Tony and Carla, David and Judy, Stephanie and Nikki, his grandchildren, Nicole and Drew, Max and Viviana, Madison and Zach, Jonah, Mark, Benjamin, Brooke, and Evan, and Marissa, his Oliver, Remy, Opal, Bino, did I pronounce it right? Maisel, Owen, Opal, Maisel, Owen, and Leo, great-grandchildren? I hope I got everybody. What a list. Amazing. Peter, you're so much more than a friend, an uncle. What a beautiful tribute to him. And we mourn still his sister, Merle, and his parents, Samuel and Eleanor. What a legacy Mark leaves behind. And may we all live a life as full as Mark lived, a life of feeding our individual souls, of giving back to others, of seizing the day, knowing that tomorrow is only an idea. But today is where we stand. Zichrono livracha. May Mark's memory be an enduring blessing. And let us say, Amen. We pause for just a few moments as we think about all the gifts and the pieces of the puzzle that Mark brought to our lives. We invite you now to please rise as you are able for the chanting of El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShchina, Bemalot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezoar Rakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Mark ben Shmuel Shalach Leolamo, Baal Rachamim Yastirehu Beseter Kenafev Al Olamim, Vitzror Achayim Et Nishmato, Adonai Unachalato, Ve'anuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo, Ve'nomar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and the pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate one, hold Mark close to you forever, so that his soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he find a home with you. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. As we turn to the conclusion of our service, family will move from the funeral home to Mayfield Cemetery for his interment at Mayfield Mausoleum. Thank you. Gancheni b'maglei tzedek l'ma'an shemo gam elech et gates al mavet lo iradat yachayim.